Oh, 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 we're live. Are we good? I probably should have adjusted the mic before I started. So, hello. Hello, yes. Oh, it's been a couple of weeks since I've recorded. Been focusing on writing, which is going okay. Hesitate to say well, but it's going okay. Let's see if... Okay, yeah, sounds fine. Cool. Right, well, don't look at my face any longer. Have a look at this. So this is everything I've read so far. Today is the 25th of August. Probably should have done this at the halfway point of the year, so there's quite a few more books. But I've been sort of wanting to test out doing a live video rather than a recorded one. I must admit, partly it's so that I don't have to edit a big long tailless video again. But also, I don't know. I mean, it's 10 in the morning. This is a very weird time to do a live stream. I'm sorry. But I keep waking up early from hay fever, and just felt like doing it. Okay. So here we are with all my books. Yeah, there's 41. That's what I've read so far, which is pretty cool. And this is where I realize how long ago the start of the year was, because I'm looking at these books going, was that this year? Really? I mean, number one of that will be, where are you? Empire of the Vampire. Because to me, this is a December wintry book. I started reading it over Christmas, so I must have finished it in January, which is why it's here. Highly recommend, if you've not read it yet, save it for the winter. It was a very cool wintry book. Really enjoyed it. And I'm starting off with some tricky decisions. Gonna go with a solid A. Yeah, we'll go with A. I did really enjoy it. I'm really looking forward to the next one. It is a chonker. I think what's holding it back from S is that I don't remember having any like, yeah, oh my god, about but did I though? Maybe towards the end. We'll leave it in A. Solid high A. Pick one random. The Crowfolk. Probably gonna put it in C. This is one of those books that's just like in the middle, and there will be a few of those, sadly. And I hate books that sit in the middle because they're really hard to talk about. It's just okay. It's fine. So Crowfolk, I like the setting. It was World War II England, but in a quaint village. So they're removed from any fighting, but there was sort of a background. But then there's all this strange magic stuff going on with scarecrows coming to life. And it was okay. I think it was trying to be funny, if I remember, but I don't remember the humor landing, which will be another thing you'll see again in other books. Okay, I'm going to try and keep this as quick as possible because I don't want a 2-hour video like my last tier list video was. My things landed on Harrow, so let's look at Harrow. I see, like, if I was marking on writing ability alone, I think Harrow would be an S. Like, the talent that Tamsin Muir has is incredible. And yeah, but you do spend most of the book just not having a clue what is going on. And that's just going to make it hard for most readers. And that and the second person narrative. And weirdly, I've read now a couple more books that just keep having second person narratives. And I think I'm getting used to it. But it was quite jarring in Harrow. It did have the unfortunate book of being the first one to do that to me this year. But yeah, I'm in the this book is fantastic camp, definitely. So definitely an A. If you've read Gideon and you're a bit worried about it, I think you just have to go in accepting that you won't know what is happening. But just go with the flow. It will pay off. Just go with it. And don't read it digitally like I did read it on paperback, because there's useful information in the appendices that I wish I had quicker access to. I'm a dummy. If I ever reread them, I'll buy them on paperback, definitely. Okay. Life Isn't Binary. I think this snuck into the last tier list because, again, it was on that edge in the year. It's nonfiction. Was fine. Not all of it. These types of books that kind of cover some mental health stuff are quite tricky because I know a lot of it already. But this did look at a lot of interesting things. It looks at gender, but also just the emotional binaries. I think that was the chapter I found most interesting. So I did actually end up lending this to someone who was interested in becoming a counselor, because I thought that these sort of like questions and not thought experiments, that's the wrong word, but I thought that could be quite useful to them. The emotional binary was basically, you know, this dichotomy of you're either happy or you're sad, and it's saying, well, no, you can be a bit of both. You can sit in the middle. Actually, it's very healthy and normal to be a bit of both. So that was good. I don't know. Thinking back, I don't know if I'd recommend it if you're someone who's so finally, I think I was looking at it because I was seeing if it would spark something with me to see, because over the years I've questioned things of like gender and sexuality, and I was wondering if any of that applied to me. But it didn't really help in that regard, so I don't know. I don't think it would for you. So I think if you're looking for a book that helps with any sort of coming out, this is probably not the one, but it has some interesting stuff in anyway. Shall I do on the non-fictions actually and just get them out of the way? Putin's People. Now I'm going to put it in A because I think the research that went into this book is incredible and outstanding. The only however I have is that it's very thick, very dry, and I did find it very difficult to read at first. It took me a very long time to get used to reading this kind of book. So if you don't read much nonfiction, or if the nonfiction you read tends to be on the easier end, yeah, this will take a while to get into. I remember when I started, I could manage 20 pages and then I'd want to fall asleep. like I would feel actually drowsy. But over time that went up and up, and I was managing to do 40 pages at a time. So that does go to show that reading is something you can practice. But back to the book, there's so much useful information. Yeah, it's a crazy read. It really is. If you've got the patience for a book like it, then yeah, by all means go for it. But if you don't, I'd maybe try and find another way to look at this, to get this information. The Gaslit podcast is a good way to start. Other nonfiction, Modern Japan, I just put it in the B. It's very weird that it's also quite dry, but it's very short and bite-sized. So I did enjoy it, and it's actually been quite good to have that knowledge in my back pocket when I've read a lot of the Japanese fiction that I've read. I actually did a video where I said that there was a connection in this. Mishima, the writer, is mentioned in this, and then I ended up reading his book without realizing. So that was interesting. Any other nonfiction? I haven't read a lot, so that probably is it. Okay, yes. What shall we do now? Oh god. Let's start with well, we're not starting. Let's carry on with the book I've literally just finished about an hour ago. Just this morning. If I'm putting Crowfolk as a C, I think I have to put Book of Foam and Emptiness as a C. Because it's another, it's just fine. Yeah, I was a bit disappointed. This won the Women's Fiction Prize this year. And considering Piranesi won it last year, which was like such a fantastic book. And a quick read to swap that for something that's a longer book that's a little bit more of a drag. Yeah, it's disappointing. The idea is, the concept is basically mother and son have just lost the father of the family, and both of them then deal with emotional issues. But I just felt like it was very flat. Like, they just continued to suffer from the same issues for 500 pages. And things change right at the end, but there doesn't seem to be like a trigger for them getting better. Yeah, it's okay. But I think the killer was that halfway through, I realized that this was reminding me of the type of books that we would be given to read in English lit at like GCSE and A level. So not when you're doing Shakespeare, when you're doing sort of more modern literature, we would get something like this that's about a poor family having mental issues. Like, yeah. I mean, I'm British. That's what most of our books have been about for decades. Taco B. Okay. I found it really interesting. It's really, really, really dark. Like, really dark. But I wouldn't say it stuck with me. So I'm just going to put it in a B. This is basically about a child who's having the worst life ever. Happy little alien comes to help her out, but she is so fucking depressed that the alien doesn't really help, and she does something very drastic to herself, but he is able to rewind time and do other crazy things. So yeah, it's a strange one. It's very short. If you're interested in messed up manga, give it a look. it's fine. No, it's more than fine. It was good, but it's just not quite A tier. Let's carry on with the manga, shall we? Remina. I actually think Remina's gonna hang out in B for Junji Ito. Not his absolute best. It was kind of cool. As always, we get some interesting visuals, but not as interesting as some of his best. I didn't do any other Junji Ito this year. Not yet, anyway. I will definitely get some more later in the year. Because there was another one that came out not long after Remina, I think, that I haven't read yet. Can we just take a minute to appreciate Junji Ito? The man created the scariest images that we would find on the internet years ago. You know, that's how people my age discovered Junji Ito, is like someone would share one of the like manga strips and be like, "Isn't this messed up?" And you'd be like, "Whoa, this is creepy." But the fact that he is still putting out manga for us is just wonderful. Oh, that reminds me, when's the Uzumaki show coming out? That can't be far away. Please be coming soon. Very different manga, Maid-sama. I love Maid-sama. It makes me very happy. This is going to count for the entire run, by the way. I don't like splitting up my manga on Storygraph just because I don't like it to fudge my numbers. So this is the entirety of Maid-sama. I read the whole lot when I was not feeling well, I think, and it was perfect. The anime cut short, so it was very nice to finally see how it ends. And I just love it. Like, I can't remember the main character's name, but she's my hero. She is a tomboy. She doesn't care about fashion. You know, clearly we have some things in common. And I think she's great. And then to put her against this guy who makes her flustered and annoyed is really great and good fun. Yeah, Maid-sama is like my perfect rom-com. Ideal. I love it so much. Do we have any other manga? Yes, 20th Century Boys. So I'm going to put this at the bottom of A. I've only read volume 1, so this does not encompass everything, just volume 1. I'm intrigued, and I definitely see the potential. I'm just not at a point yet in the manga where it's going to pay off, but even so, I'm going to leave it in A because it's very interesting, and it's exactly what I wanted out of a manga right now. And I should get around to buying some more. We have a comic. I'm gonna put this in the middle of A. A is gonna be quite full. I had a good time reading this year, just to warn you. Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed this. A lot of small comics and strips put together. I think it was originally an online thing, but it's funny and a little bit thought-provoking. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Any other manga or comics? No. But what we do have is a light novel. Boxing Day. So this, I can't remember what the name of this one was. It is it's one of the Monogatari's. Monogatari just means tale, as in a story, by the way, which I thought was quite interesting. So you will find a lot of other things that are also something Monogatari. Oh, this is Bakemono. Oh, yes. Okay, so it's Bakemonogatari Part 2, which is like the first from the first couple of books, but I read the prequel first because people recommended reading that first. So this was the third book for me. And just out of interest, I want to see when I finish. I finished reading this on the 11th of February, and I haven't gone back to the series since. It's kind of bad, but I'm also intrigued enough to maybe read another one because they're easy reads. They don't take long. It is a light novel after all. But oh my, yeah. I really thought there would be. I really thought this would be more interesting. And I thought it'd be more clever. I thought it'd be smarter than it is. But it's actually pretty dumb. And the main character's kind of terrible. It's trash. It is anime trash of some caliber. I don't even know if I'd say the highest caliber. What would be a good one to pick up? Let's go. Housekeeper and the Professor. Isn't it? It's so beautiful and lovely. Basically, if you want a book that just depicts very kind, lovely characters, this is the book. It kind of has this twinge of sadness through it because you have a character who keeps forgetting what's happened every day. So every day he starts afresh. But the way that the housekeeper deals with it, and her son as well, is just so heartwarming. Like, I would be smiling reading this book. And I think it's definitely one I'm going to come back to. And I really want to recommend it to a friend of mine, but she dealt with someone in her life who had Alzheimer's, so I don't know if it'll be a bit too much for her, annoyingly. But it's beautiful. I think everyone should read it. It's really good. What's next? Oh, I did two. Which one is this? Okay, this is The Children Who Lived in the Barn. It's like a children's book from the 30s? The 1930s? And it's a British book. There's a group of kids. The parents go to France to see the grandparent, get lost on the way, and then the children are parentless from then on. And then they have to survive and end up living in a barn. It's a weird. I'm only rating it on how I felt, but it's a hard one to rate because it's very definitely not aimed at me because I'm not a child living in the 30s. But it was interesting. It was interesting. Well, let's do the other Persephone book. Green Manx. If Crowfolk and the Ruth Ozeki book are in C, I think this has to be. It's not like badly written. I just really didn't enjoy it. yeah, just there's something about it that just was not for me. So this is another. I think this was also set in the 30s or written in the 30s, and it just depicts a British family, and follows them through the years. And there's some sort of like family dramas going on as sons go off and do things that they shouldn't, or and then long lost sons emerge and things like that. And but everyone has to be prim and proper because this is the 1930s Britain, and we all have to be proper. Yeah, and there's a lot of sexism in there, like obviously very of the time. And I actually think because this was a female writer, she did it purposefully to show these attitudes. So I definitely think this was written from a point of view of someone fighting those attitudes. So it's not a knock against her, but as a reader, I just wasn't interested in reading it. That's about all I can say. From one extreme to another, I'm gonna put it in S. I loved Out. Out was fascinating. So Out is a thriller about a group of women who work overnight in a factory. Not just one night, they work nights. But one of them kills her husband, and then the rest of them have to deal with the body. We go into these deep character studies of all the women, but then we also move out and we follow someone else who kind of is suspicious about what's happening because the blame has been put on him because he's been previously arrested for assault. If you are looking for a solid thriller, and you're willing to put the time in because this is a long book, but I actually don't think anything needed to be cut. In fact, I would have liked more on the eldest woman in the group. I actually would have liked to see more of her story. Yeah, I couldn't stop reading this. It was so fascinating. I don't read that many thrillers, but this is the perfect thriller, and I think I'd find it hard to read other thrillers because I would just want them to be this. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I actually really should see what else she's written. Something Curino. Yeah, I should find something else that she's written because I loved it. By the way, I'm aware that we now have 2 of the sort of vintage collection Japanese classics here. Just a hint, not all of them are going to be there. It ain't going to be a full sweep. Just letting you know. You know what? I should have made a whole other category for Lady Joker because this is not finished. I'm gonna leave it just sat in B because it's not a finished story, and I don't think we're gonna get part 2 until February. So the issue is, I think this is only just being translated. It's existed in Japan for quite a while. It's quite I think it was released in the 90s. So it's been out for a while, but it's only just getting translated, and we're only just getting this really nice edition of it. But nowhere on the book did it say it was volume 1, but it is in fact volume 1. So it's unfinished. But what I read was kind of like Out, very solid character studies, but done in a very different way. This really goes into like the minutiae of their jobs. So you do get some like boring talk every now and then, but if you're someone who likes slow stories that take the time to go into detail, then yeah, this was really interesting, but I can't recommend it right now while it's unfinished. I should give the broader strokes of the story, really. So this is inspired by the Beast with 1,000 Faces, or something with 1,000 faces. So it was a group that kidnapped a CEO from Glyco, I think it was. And to this day, no one has been arrested or caught for this crime. And the effect of the crime was that stocks tanked in the company. So there is speculation that that was actually the whole point of the crime. And there was other stuff that went along with it. Obviously, the writer hasn't just word for word rewritten what happened. But the inspiration is very clear. It was good. I liked what I read. Just need to finish reading it. Let's mix it up with the appeal. Is that a thriller? Are murder mysteries automatically thrillers? It doesn't read like a thriller, but it doesn't read like a lot of other books. So this is a book where the framing device is that there are two women who work for a law firm, and they are going through the emails and text messages of a group of people trying to figure out who murdered somebody. So easy to read that I finished it in 24 hours, which does not happen very often. I just sat and read this thing all day. But weirdly, I'm going to just put it in B. Like, it's pop fun, but I'm also not going to go out my way to recommend it to people. I don't think it's anything spectacular, but I had fun with it. Like, B is a good place to be. And also, the setting for this is like, again, it's quaint British village. I read a few books that are quaint British, and it's following a group of that is like, it's an amateur dramatics group, so they're the Amdram people, which is very amusing because if you've ever been part of an Amdram production or been around those types of people, you'll recognize them in this book. Yeah, that did amuse me quite a lot. Dune Messiah. Dune is so hard for me to rate, because how I feel when I read them is a very different thing to how I feel when I'm finished. When I'm reading them, I'm like, okay, yeah, oh, this is interesting. Yeah, fascinating. Okay. And then when it's over, I'm like, but what does that mean? But what happens? What happens now? And then it sticks with me. And that's why I think that's why I've fallen in love with it a little bit. Like I've said last year with the original Dune, did not expect. Dune Messiah, don't think I like it as much as some other people do. There's not as much about this one in particular that sticks out at me. So I'm gonna do like, okay, no, it belongs above the appeal. Gonna put it there. But then Children of Dune, I'm gonna put higher. It is a bigger book, more happens, and I think it is a more fascinating book for the implications it has for this world. And also it just felt like there was more plotting going on. It's going to be up here, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And I've bought the next one. I've been watching Daniel Green's review, like rewatching Daniel Green's reviews of these, and I think he said that he was quite happy that to just read the trilogy that covers like Paul's family, to sort of like Paul arc. So I did wonder if that's where I would stop with Dune. But no, I've bought the next one. I'm not going to read it right away. But, oh my, I'm fascinated and I want to see this get weird. I need a bit more weird in my reading. And I think Dune is what's given it to me at the moment. Yeah. I should do like a spoiler chat about Dune. About like the Paul arc. Have I done that yet? I don't know. Maybe after my next video recording. Gonna pick out another meh one. Drowning City. Yeah. Is it D actually? No, leave it in C. There's enough to rescue it. It's a fantasy, but it's sort of like North Asian inspired, I think. Or it's sort of like Middle East meets India meets some of the cultures. So I really liked that aspect of it. But I think there was a lot of failings in the writing, unfortunately. You know, we'd have these revelations that, oh my god, someone's gone against the group, they've betrayed them, or this person's been murdered, and I'd have no reaction because things weren't set up well enough. When the person died, I was like, who are they? Who's this person? I don't remember them. Yeah, and the fact that someone from the main trio that you start with betrays the rest and defects to another group sort of doesn't register. It's very weird. So yeah, not carrying on with that author, unfortunately. But it's been sat on my bookshelves for years, so I'm very happy to be able to clear it out now, finally. You know what I should have put on here actually was my DNFs, because can I add to this? No, I can't. But I did another one off my shelf, the Shadow Magic Trilogy, and I just DNF'd that because that was not for me. You're welcome to look that up yourself. I'm doing it. I'm gonna. I think it does belong above these two Kings of the Wild, but I did a whole video on it. I was very disappointed. I think the huge thing for me was that I wanted this to be funny. I didn't have to laugh out loud because that's very hard to achieve from a book. But you know, Scott Lynch has managed it a few times. But I wanted to find this really funny, and there was maybe like one or two jokes that landed for me. The rest just kind of bored me. I think that's the biggest sin of this book, is that I was bored quite a lot. Yeah, and the aging heroes getting the band back together, I don't think it's as original as it claims to be. Yeah, sorry. I always feel like I need to apologize. I don't like it because because I know a lot of people really enjoy Kings of the Wild, but just it did not land for me. Let's go back to some Japanese fiction. Nakano Thrift Shop. Oh, I think that sits around the appeal. It's very slice of life. Follow a bunch of characters who work at a thrift shop. Very episodic. You know, you just get a little story each chapter relating to an object or a customer or something like that. Quite sweet. Nothing extra special, but I recommend it as a little palate cleanser. If you don't want anything that's going to tax your brain too much, that's just going to be quite relaxing. That's, yeah, look for Nakano Thrift Shop. And I might pick up one of the Sothers books again for that reason. If I'm ever feeling bogged down and I need a little bit of Japan fiction, I'm going to use this author, definitely. On the opposite end of Japanese fiction is this very dense book, the Makioka Sisters. How did I feel about the Makioka Sisters? It's been a while now since I finished it. I'm gonna put it at the bottom. Well, Lady Joker has to keep the bottom of B position. I did find it interesting. So this is kind of like a Japanese classic because it's about a group, a family who is quite prestigious in Japan. So they have family money and they have a reputation to look after. So that's very key to this. But this is like just after the turn of the century and war is sort of looming in the background. I did think war would play a bigger part in it, but it remains very much the background. So yeah, this is a lot of family drama stuff. I think I mostly found it interesting because it taught me a few more things about Japan and that kind of society. So for that aspect, I got something out of it. Yeah, I don't know if there's much else to say, so I'll move on. For more modern Japanese, Haruki Murakami Wild Shoot Jace. This is my first Murakami. It's recommended to me by a friend years ago, but I knew that Wind Up Bird Chronicle was coming up on my to-read list. So I thought I'd best do a little smaller book of his as a taster beforehand. I didn't want to jump straight into one of his most loved books. Think it sits there. It was alright. It was interesting. It was kind of weird. It was a little bit of an adventure. Kind of intriguing, but it never reached any particular highs for me. I would recommend it if you're interested in Murakami because, yeah, it did the job in that it gave me a little taste of his writing style. So if you want to test the waters for Murakami, read this, but no, it's not his absolute best. But it's still fun. Still fun. So we might as well do Wind Up Bird Chronicle. Not S tier for me. But it definitely belongs in A. I think putting an external review makes sense because it's... is there a lot to think about? I don't know if there's a lot to think about once I finish reading it, but it definitely covers a lot of strange stories and thought processes. It's a odd book to describe. And the crux of the book, the sort of start, where a woman rings the main character and claims to know him, you think it will play more of a part in the book in general, and it sort of fades away and isn't that important, but it does come back, so things do loop back around, and for Murakami at least makes some sort of sense. Yeah, it's really interesting and hard to describe. If you want something that's a bit weirder in the literary space, I would recommend it. I feel like I've done an awful job of describing Murakami. This is why you don't... Oh, I still had tea. It'll be really cold by now. Oh, that's devastating. It's not too bad. Why did I think I was done? And that was delicious as well. It's affogato inspired tea. So it's got like vanilla and coffee bean mixed in. And then I've topped it off with some hazelnut milk. Oh, it was fabulous. But I did need that little bit of drink because they were now on the last line. That's 3, 6, 9, 12. 13 books left. Well, my mouse is on it, and it's the last of the Japan classics. And it's going down here. This is the sailor who fell from grace with the sea. I think I've said that right this time. I hate this. I hate it. I hate it. It's terrible. And I'm putting it below Bakemonogatari because at least that has some fun in it. And I'm sure there's some people who would crucify me for that and say that Michiver is classic, but I mean, the dude was a fascist, so I'm not going to feel that bad about it. I just rolled my eyes so many times at this. If this was written in the modern day, this is like edgelord teens writing their own Joker fanfiction. You know, this is... I did not like it at all. The son... So it's about mother and son live alone, and then the mother one day meets the sailor because they live by a port, and she starts a relationship with the sailor. But the son's sort of like fallen in with this crowd of boys who are very into what it means to be a man. And then he thinks that the sailor's betrayed manliness by starting a relationship, and yeah, I just, yeah, it was horrible. And it includes a horrible scene where they kill a kitten, which I did not need to read. And when I'd finished reading it, I had to pick up my cat and hold her for comfort. Yeah, this book sucks. Books and Bow recently did a video about him, and it was very thought-provoking and interesting, and they wanted to read more of his stuff. I'm not I'm not interested in that intellectual exercise, but go watch that video by Books and Bow. Very interesting. Not for me. Thank you. I'm done with him because I think guy's a bit of a joker. This guy who died many years ago. Take that, you loser. Died in what, the 70s? Okay, I think we should do Sanderson in one swoop. Let's do the Emma Blade. I gave this 5 stars on Storygraph when I first read it, but I do wonder how much of that was A, recency bias, and B, me knowing that other people really rated it highly. So I think maybe my head was swayed by that a little bit, because it's not stuck with me that well. It's one of those difficult ones where I can't pinpoint anything that's particularly wrong with it, but it didn't blow me away either. And I don't mean in the way like these seas are, like Crowfolk, where I'm like, yeah, it's fine, but like, it was a good book. But I wouldn't be sad if I didn't get to read more. So I'm gonna go with B, I think. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm not even really sure. Like I said, I don't know why. On the back it says it's very Lord of the Rings inspired. But I didn't see that much, other than a section that does feel very like the Mines of Moria sort of sequence. That part I get, but the rest is different enough that, you know, and with fantasy, when you say Lord of the Rings inspired, it's like, well, the whole genre is Lord of the Rings inspired. Unless it's actively trying to not be Lord of the Rings. It is like, I do want to read more. Just saying, if someone told me tomorrow that he's given up writing it, I wouldn't be sad. That's all I'm saying. Let's do the indies. So Shadow of a Dead God, very similar to Rivers of London, and Dresden. You know, it's a magician who is a detective, kind of. The difference being that rather than like a modern setting on Earth, it is its own fantasy city. So if you kind of wanted a mishmash of those two things, there's this. It was pretty good. I did enjoy it, but it's in the enjoyed it but not. Do I put it above Makioka? I'll put it between these two. It's getting harder now. It's an indie title. So again, I think you have to make allowances and say, with an editor, things would be tightened up. I'm sure that's the same for my own books. Yeah, no major flaws with it. It just didn't grab me massively. And I think Flesh Eater is in a similar boat. Flesh Eater, no, actually, I'm gonna drop Flesh Eater down a little bit, because I mean, one is not as well, actually, no, it is its fault. I was gonna say, with Flesh Eater, I didn't get what I expected. I think because that title Flesh Eater is quite dramatic, and you have this really dark cover. And I kind of thought, we're gonna get this character stuck in a prison, stuck in a really horrible situation, and it's gonna be either edging on grimdark or it's gonna be grimdark. But then we get something that's actually way lighter in tone than I was expecting, and all the characters are anthropomorphic animals. Like, I guess, no, you can portray that in the blurb. So yeah, that kind of was a surprise. I didn't know that going in. But I guess once you start, the story doesn't affect things that much, because they're just people. And I think in another book, I'd quite like that change. You know, I'm up for reading a book that's not got humans in it. But at the very end, there's something that just sort of comes from nowhere. That because it wants to hint at the next book, but there's also these big implications, and I think more could have been done to hint at that, or actually place that more into the book rather than putting it right at the end, because it just comes from nowhere and like, oh, is this what the series is about? And I don't know if I'm interested in reading more. Never say never. This is for Flesh Eater and Shadow of a Dead God. You know, it does happen where I think I'm done with the series, and then a lot of time passes, and I go, actually, you know what? I wouldn't mind reading some more of that. And seeing, because also book twos have a way of improving on the first, so who knows, maybe. And another indie for the batch, Legends and Lattes, is lovely. It's beautiful. I'm gonna put it at the bottom, maybe. No, I'm gonna put it above these. I don't think I need to talk about this one because it's been so big on the internet, because we all saw it and had the same reaction. We saw that title, we saw the description that said that this is low stakes fantasy, that it was about coffee and baking, and we all saw that cover, that beautiful cover, and said yes. I mean, that, you know, that's the ultimate format. That's what all authors want. We want a cover and title that attracts people, and a blurb that hooks everyone in and says, God damn it, yes, that's what I want right now. And you know what? I'm kind of annoyed. Look, Travis Baldry, how dare you take that format that I actually wanted to do, because I've had something bubbling away in my head that was fantasy setting, but it was about, like, I still want to write it at some point, but it's about someone cooking. I wanted to do food porn in a book. And how dare you do that first? But no, fair play to the guy. He knocked it out of the park, and that's the quickest turnaround I've seen for a book deal. Hot damn. Yeah, it was lovely, and the best thing about it, I think, this is going to sound horrible, but the best thing about it was that it's pretty short. And the reason I say that is because slice of life is really nice and lovely, but I think in a book format, and when it's limited to so many characters, you kind of think, well, I've seen this now. I've seen a few more progressions in the cafe and some cakes, but I've seen it now. I'm done. And it knew when it was done, and it knew when to walk away, because I think if it tried to drag on for another 100 pages, I think you'd fall into boredom. That is the risk that is such a huge risk with slice of life. So the fact that he doesn't let it tip that way is really good. And I look forward to something else from him in the future when I'm in the mood for slice of life stuff. Let's finish off the Japan fiction. I think it's the Lonely Castle in the Mirror. It's about kids who each have a mirror in their room that lights up. They go through, and on the other side is this girl wearing a mask who says they have a year to find a key and a room, and if they find the key in the room, they get a wish granted. But what happens is that the kids start forming friendships. It's very nice, very sweet. And it does have a couple moments that hit quite hard. it's hard because these are all kids who don't go to school for like reasons of trauma and bullying. So there's depictions of like extreme bullying in this, but weirdly doesn't feel like it hits hard enough sometimes. And the ending tried to do this clever wrap up that kind of comes from nowhere and doesn't feel deserved. Yeah, like Crowfolk, fun enough time, but not quite as poignant and punchy as I wanted it to be. But you know who manages to do punchy storytelling? I didn't realize when I did this that all the Japanese books would be an S, but oh my god, I've read some good ones this year. All the Lovers in the Night. Yes, fantastic. Miyako Kawakami, she's amazing. I've sung her praises so many times. This one is about a person who has a job where she gets to work from home, but she's already quite an isolated character anyway. She's just very bad at socializing, but she's also has some trauma in her past. And yeah, this is kind of a peek at how it goes when she slowly gets out into the world, but does it in a very terrible way because she starts to rely on alcohol to help her out, and that just goes really badly. If you like books that are just about characters, Kawakami is your person. Yeah, if I carry on, I'll just keep praising it more and more. Does it belong at the bottom of S? I think Housekeeper and the Professor can stay there. I'm gonna leave it there. I think that's fine. 100 Years of Solitude. How do I feel about this? Gonna go high B. So this follows a family in Colombia, and we watch them through multiple generations, and we see repeated mistakes that the characters make. It's definitely a book with characters that aren't fantastic. So you have to, I think, if you're someone who likes sort of, I don't know if morally grey is the right word, because I feel like in books that has certain connotations. If you like complicated, kind of weird characters, then this is one for you. But be warned, early on, there is a whole situation with a child bride, and it really threw me off, and I felt gross. And I was very glad when the whole section was over. Ugh. Yeah, and other than that, this book went up and down for me. There was moments where it felt like fun and whimsical, or like quite dark because it's sort of like reflecting these real historical tragedies. And then there's other times where I just was losing my patience with it, so it was very up and down. So there are moments of brilliance, and then some moments where I'm like, what are you doing? And I don't even mean the magical realism stuff. I think just the way the family behaves. I think some of that also comes from cultural differences. Not to talk about child bride, because I think that's always gross, whatever the case. But cultural differences of things like, children out of wedlock and stuff like that. Would I recommend it? if you're interested in classics and you want to see different styles of writing, definitely, because I've not read anything written in a style like this before. You know, where it's told very matter of fact, like this character did this and this, and then this happened and this happened, but then he'll mention something that's going to happen in like 2 decades, which is very interesting. The top part of this chart is about to get very heavy. Final Empire. Oh. I think I have to. I loved it. I had so much fun. We were just plodding along happily. Once it hit the 150-page mark, oh my god, was I in. I was having a blast, having a whale of a time. It was absolutely fantastic. Then I will say book 2, high A, but then Hero of Ages at the S again for that ending. Oh, but do I... Yeah, I'm just going to leave it. But to be honest, these two could switch places, and I'd be fine with that. Because a lot of Hero of Ages was like very... Oh, it's just so grim. Everything was really sad, and I was not in the mood to be sad. So yeah, the first like 2/3 was a harder read, and very depressing, but the ending was fantastic. So that definitely pulled it back for me. And that was Mistborn Era 1. I loved it. I'm not going to harp on much about this because everyone knows Mistborn, and I already have another video where I talk about it. So you can go watch that. Oh, we're nearly done. So 5th season. Oh, this is where it gets really hard. I might do a little bit of shuffling in a bit, but it's a solid A, and I'm just going to put Obelisk Gate next to it because it almost reads like just a continuation. I see now why so many people love this series. I can't wait to start the 3rd one. It is fantasy with a pretty unique magic system. So people can, I guess, in book 1, it's sort of sold as they can create earthquakes or calm earthquakes and move rocks, and it's very earth-based. But then that sort of progresses in the 2nd book. I won't say how or spoil anything. But in book 1 especially, I like the concept that, you know, some of these people can create volcanoes and cause mass destruction. And that is why a lot of people fear them. But as X-Men has taught us, fear will make people treat other people very terribly. And we actually kind of, as the story progresses, we find out that actually magic users of that level are getting rarer and rarer. So actually, a lot of the time, the fear is fairly unfounded. Yeah, just great, and like unexpectedly good depictions of gay and trans people and relationships. Like, that's not part of the selling point of the series, so just to have that there was great. Yeah, I love it. If you're like me and you're a bit intimidated by the first one, because it's like, it's prize winning, and that first chapter is kind of weird and hard to get your head around, but just get through the introduction and you'll be fine. Yeah, it's very rewarding. it goes to dark places. And it's great. Can't wait to finish off this series. And that's it. Here we go. So I think I'm gonna nudge Harrow down a little bit. Yeah, gonna put Harrow there. Anyone else I want to move? So that's staying at the bottom because it's intriguing, but I'm in the middle of it. Same for Lady Joker. The difference between those two being that Lady Joker is a half-finished book, whereas this is volumes 1 and 2 of a series. So there is still the feeling of stories being told and finished. So that's why we've got the difference between A and B. Don't be surprised if this gets lifted up next year when I get to finish the whole thing. I think I'm happy with that. Yeah. Been streaming for about an hour. I've managed to wrap that up pretty quick, thankfully. And I'll be interested to see how I feel when I've come back to this at the end of the year. So I need to save this. But for now, where's my streamy thing? So that's it. Let me know if you've got any favorite reads of the year so far. This was fun, and I'll see you soon. Bye.